Hello friends, welcome to the EF Core Mega Tutorial. Ever wondered how to design your database, connect it to your .NET app and then query it like a pro? We are combining our latest and best EF Core content into one powerhouse video. So covering the model first, database first with relationship and real world LINQ and CRUD operations. So come, let's get started. Hello friends, welcome back. In this video, I will show you how to master the EF Core using the model first approach. From writing models, configuring relationships, using EF tools to build clean web API endpoints. Whether you're new to EF Core or just need a solid refresh, this hands-on walkthrough will help you get production ready fast. So come, let's get started. I opened up the Visual Studio 2022 and I'm going to choose the ASP.NET Core Web API. You can filter it from here and I say next. I choose the project name and the location and I'm going to click next, and here I'm going to choose 9. As of this recording, .NET 9 is standard. I'm choosing that and everything is default. Create. Okay, so the default template project has been created, but before we step into the Entity Framework Core, first of all, what is EF Core? So Entity Framework Core is an ORM, Object Relational Mapper, that's for the .NET, and it lets you interact with databases using CSharp objects, avoid writing raw SQL, though it is possible that if you wanted to do so, but it also handles the schema evolution via migrations. Okay, so what is code first then? So code first is nothing but you define your schema in CSharp classes, and then the EF Core generates the database based on those models, and you manage the schema changes using your migration. So that is what it is called the code first approach. There are pros and cons for the code first approach. Pros, it's a full control in code. It's great for agile and startup project, easy to version and manage via Git. It works well with small to medium projects. But here's the important thing for the cons. The complex DB requirements like custom constraint, computer columns, advanced indexing, these are the things that gets harder to define purely in the code. And in large legacy DBs, managing from code can become really messy. So it really depends on your use case when to use the code first and the database. In this video, we will still go ahead and check the code first, and in the next video, we will talk about the database first approach. Alright, so let's do one by one in this. So the very first thing is, first let's install the package. So right click on the project, manage NuGet package. It will show up on the browse. Choose Entity Framework Core, Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. And there's only one package, and if you choose this, you see there's billions of downloads, so it's widely used. So as of this recording, 9.04 is the one. I can install this. So once I install this, we have other packages to install. So but one thing what you should know is, any package that you install here will actually come and sit here. Whatever you install is coming in and sitting here, right? So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put a bunch of information here, and when I put it is 9.0.0, basically a few version earlier, but I can update this. While you get the code, you'll get the latest one. Okay, so all what you have to do is, you need to install these packages, and these packages are mainly with Entity Framework Core, Design and SQL Server, because we're going to use that as a SQL Server. Alright, remaining these things are for the Swagger. So once I save it, and if you do a Control-Shift-B, which will build the project, and if everything is correct, the project will build. You will see a succeed message here. See, you got the build succeeded. Now let's do one by one. The very first thing that we need to do is, we will create a folder called entities. Okay, here, entities. Now listen to me, and now just for your information, because this is just a demo on model first approach, we will not be having layers of project, but everything under one single monolithic application. But I have enough videos that shows good architectures like clean architecture, CQRS pattern and all of those things. these things should go in those kind of patterns, but this is just for learning purpose, so everything is going to be in the single project. Do not do this for the real-time project. Okay, this is absolutely not correct. This is only for sample application, just for learning purpose. So we have an entities folder here, and what we are going to do is we are going to deal with student versus course as the simple entities. So in order to do that, I am going to choose so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a file called entities. So I'm going to add a file and we'll name this as student. All right, so now we added a class called student.cs. Now imagine this, right? Every single class objects, like every single object here, is representing a table in the database. So in our database, which we are going to create, we have a table named student. So every table will have columns, right? So we define the table columns in terms of properties. All the properties here becomes the column name. So student ID, full name, date of birth, they're all of different types. And the reason why you have to put the table name followed by ID is the EF Core will automatically determine that this is the primary key of this table. If you name ID, it will still consider, but if you name something else, you need to manually define what is the primary key. If not, the EF Core will not be able to find out. Now we have a table, we have 3 columns in it. Okay, now let's define another table called course quickly. So let's define a table name which is the object name as course, and in this case again we will define a property called course ID that becomes a primary key. And what we will do, we will define another column called course name. Okay, so this is done. So now what we are going to do is we are saying every single course, or in other words, a student can enroll in a course. So if that is the case, if that is our design, then a student will have its course ID, to which course he or she has been enrolled. So one student can go with only one course. That's the logic. That's why we have course ID. And we can also define a course. Okay, that's for the navigation purpose. Alright, so course ID that is corresponding to this course. So far good. Now if every student is associated with one course, alright, what does mean? A single course ID can have multiple students, correct? There are 10 students enrolled in different courses, or let's say 5 students enrolled in one course ID and another 2 students enrolled in the same course ID, which means one course ID can have more than one student, right? So when you have to do such kind of thing, the navigation, we will define something like this. So we will say I collection of student and we'll name it as students. So this will say one course ID can have multiple students enrolled in it. That's the logic. So we have saved this. We have these 2 tables are nothing but the tables. So we have these 2. Now what we have to do is we need to define a context. We need to define the entity framework, right? So right click on the entities, add a new item, and we will say class, and we will name this as school context. Okay, so now in order to make this as a DB context, what you have to do is this has to be inherited by the DB context class. So DB context. So if you say DB context and control period, will ask you where to pull the namespace. So DB context is coming from entity framework code. So I pulled up, right? Now what we will say, instead of telling that we will provide option in the constructor, DB context option, and that will be passed to this base class. So when I say base of option, this option is provided to this one. Okay, so the option will have connection string of the database and all of those things, like all the SQL related configuration will be there in the option. Now we define that. Now what you have to do is, in order to make the table accessible, see, the moment I enter, it is already showing in the hint, public db set of student, and student here, let me do a tab, it came. So basically all the tables has to be of db set. So db set of student means it's a table that you're defining, and then see the other one. So if you define these two, then when you access this context, you can access these two tables. Okay, so that's the concept. If you don't have this, you cannot access this from the entity framework school context. Okay, so every table should be here if you are fully utilizing the EF core. Now these two is done. Now there is one more thing that we have to do. There is a method called on model creating. Okay, so if I say protected override void on model creating, basically you're overriding the on model creating a class, a method which is inside this. Okay, so if you don't override, it is going to execute its own logic, but we are overriding and executing our logic also. So if I say control F, see, it's here. This is invoked automatically, but we can override and write our logic. So what I'm going to write is, I'm going to show you how we will define the, so I'm going to show you one simple thing, this one, right? So for student, we are saying it has only one course with many students. Course ID is the foreign key and foreign key name. If you don't say this right, the foreign key will be still created based on the configuration which is here. Okay, this is the foreign key configuration. This is primary key, this is foreign key. Why it is foreign key? A primary keys is present in another tile table, that becomes a foreign key. Course ID, if you go to course table, course ID is a primary key here. So this primary key is present here as a key, which means this becomes a foreign key. Now in order to just define the foreign key as a named constraint, we are using this model builder. Okay, so I've defined the named constraint and we will save this. Okay, so far good. We have few more things before we get into the EF Core tools. Now, very first thing is I wanted to set the configuration done. So if I go to this development environment, I'm saying connection string db context. I'm defining my connection string. See, today I don't have this table. Okay, so you can just name whatever table, I mean the database name that you want. So let's put this one, right? So let's put this as model first. Okay, this is a database name which is not there. How do I show you? If I go to my localhost, refresh the database, there is nothing called model first here. Okay, so we are defining a name which is not there, and then we define everything else, nothing else is there. This is pointing to the local database. So now this is done. Let's go to this program.cs and we will configure a few simple thing. The very first thing that you need to do is the configuration of database. So I'm saying builder.service at db context name. We're saying pull the connection string from here, and we are enabling the logging, we are enabling the detail error logging, we're also enabling the retry logics. Okay, so everything is done, so far good. And I'm going to quickly add the remaining piece of logic here that is not relevant to this one. So basically I'm going to add the Swagger endpoints here so we can debug it easily. So this is done. Okay, so now what I've done is I have just added a readme file. So next is we have to install the EF Core tool. Okay, so you can follow this readme.txt. Basically you need to install this. Okay, so try this command first. So go to this command prompt and try this command. If this command shows you some value, see for me it shows the latest version that is installed. But if it is not installed, it's simple. You need to use this command .NET tool here, .NET tool install -- global EF Core. Okay, so if you have installed and if you have a lower version, how do I update that? You can simply use .NET tool update and this command, right? So this command will update to the latest .NET Core EFC 0.9. Now if I use the previous command, it's going to update it. All right, So that's it. So you can follow this based on the clear instruction here. You need to first install the EF tool. Now let's say you have installed the EF tool. How do I know? I mean, how do you know, right? So what you do is right click on this, like, basically you go to this location. Maybe I will say explore folder in file. It's here. I will click here, command prompt. I'm basically opening this location in the command prompt. Okay, so here what we will do, we will say .NET EF. If you type this, if it is installed, it will show you like this horse kind of thing, EF and then horse and then all of these things. And what you need to understand as part of this video is .NET EF is a tool, and it's a command line tool, CLI tool. It has three major commands: database, DB context, migration. So for example, .NET EF followed by database. If you type like this, under database, what and all commands are there, it will show. See, drop and update. Okay, so if I type DB context, what will happen? See, these many commands are there inside that. So that is what it will show. And the last one is migration. Migration, if you type, it has its own commands. So let's start what is required for the model first approach. I'm going to say clear so that it's easy to look at here. So we are saying .NET EF migration -- add. So if I type here, what it says, add, right? So .NET EF migration add. You're asking the tool to add a migration, and you're also saying a migration name, the first name, initial, let's say initial code or initial draft, and then it just starts calling us saying, hey, I couldn't find the project. So basically, if you get this kind of error, you need to say -- project. Okay, you need to specify where is the project. So let's go here. We have opened the tool, we have opened the command line from at this point of time, right? So what we will do, we will have to go here. So basically we are opening from here. So we have to say the project is here. So this is the project, right? So it's just one step above. So let's open up the tool that we were using, project -- and then we will say the project is here. Let's try this. Okay, if everything is correct, if the project is correctly it's identified, then it will tell like this. Say it's building the project. Once the build is success, it will be able to create a migration for us. See, the migration is done now. What does that mean? You got a folder called migration, and then this is what the migration. So based on how you defined here, right, the course, students, and all of those things, it created migration for us. See, it automatically created the course ID as identity column 1,1 and name as envarchar max. What does that mean? You can have the course name up to 8,000 characters, but that's incorrect, right? Incorrect meaning we don't need to have such kind of a space. Okay, so this is a snapshot. Everything is here. It just created everything for us. But let's say I wanted to define a proper schema. So in this case, I'm saying the course name is just a required property, and then its max length is 50. This is called data annotation. You're defining the constraints of the columns here in the model itself. Similarly, if I go to the students, and we can define the similar one in the name of the student. So we go here, we define this. Now what do? We will do the same thing, but here we will say first draft. We are going to create a second one, like the new one. So once we have this, now based on the current models that we have defined, it will create a new migration for us, which is first draft. Okay, so now we have two migrations. What we will do is we will do one thing. So we will say .NET EF migration, or in other words, we have to do .NET EF database update, and then we'll remove this add. So this is the command .NET EF database update. So once you do this, what is going to happen? It is going to build the project. See, it is generating all the required schemas, and it will push to the database. So let's go to database, refresh this, and here's our new database tables. So let's expand this, columns and students, and look at this. Whatever we applied has gone. 50, 100, the first one took over it. And if you look at this one, this is very interesting one. This is a new table that is not in our list, but it will apply both. Okay, so first it would have applied this, which was having envarchar, and then it applied this, which restricted to envarchar 50. First one was max. So how do I know this? Let's take a look at this. So if you look at from upright, it would have first got this table. Alright, so it is clever enough to find out what is optimized, and finally it created such a script, and it applied both the migrations together. Alright, so this is for the first time. Let's say in some times, right, after some time, as per the business requirement, all of a sudden instructor concept comes into picture. So for example, if I have to add a new column called instructor, new table called instructor, so I will add this. So instructor, why do we need instructor? Basically, instructor, a course will be done by an instructor, right? So that's why an instructor is associated with the course. Now if you go to course, or in students, okay, so in students, what we will do, we will add another column, a new column in student called email. So I will use this as email here. Okay, new column. Now these two are the changes, right? Now if we have to go to this DB context, and what we will do in the DB context, we will add this new table here so that we can access this. Okay, so we run this, and that's it. What we will do, we will add one more thing. Again, same thing for the foreign key. We are defining for instructor and giving a named foreign key. Now let's repeat whatever we just did so that you understand. So here I'm going to clear this. We are going to say database migration add. Here we will name this as added instructor, just for understanding purpose. Okay, so we are adding a new migration, and you can clearly see based on this new table and other schemas that we changed, it is going to build and generate and add a new migration. And if you go to that specific migration here, it will just add the extra column for the table and the new table. Those only are there in the changes. Okay, so now we will say .NET, same thing. So we need to update the database. So we can say .NET EF database update. We don't need to specify the schemas. We can just specify the project and say enter. So what will happen? Now it will generate the remaining changes. It actually knows what changes were applied, what changes are pending, and it will actually update the database based on that. So if I go to database now and do a refresh, what will happen? I will see a new table here, and I will also see a new column here called email. See? Okay, and not only that, if you run this, you'll see the third one getting applied here. So that's how the entity framework tracks all of this information. Okay, so now what we will do, we know how to add the migration and all of those things. Let's do one more thing important. So .NET, okay, so same thing. So I'm gonna make use of this, but here instead of database, we will say .NET EF DB context. So we'll say .NET AF DB context. We will see all the options. So we have these options, right? So now what we will do, DB context, we will use a script option. So if you use a script option, see, it clearly says it's going to generate the script based on the DB context. And then we will specify the project. Let's see what happens. So it reads the migration and it will generate the table script. See, this is all table script. Okay, so 1 2 3 tables, and then we have all of this primary key and all of those things properly done. You can actually copy this and execute it. You will still be able to create the database. So we are learning the important commands that is there under the EF Core tools. So we learned the script under the database, migration, DB context and migration we added, we removed, and then we did other things also. But in this itself, if you see info and list, right? So basically, if you say info, basically it's going to say read your details and tell what DB context information it knows. So it's going to tell us the school context. See, it says we have the database name like this. It's a SQL server, source is this, and this is what the options that was provided. Similarly, what else? Info, and then we have something called, what else we have? List. So it's going to list down what DB context do we have, and this time it's going to list down the school context. Let's see school context. If you have multiple contexts, it will list down multiple contexts under the single project. All right, now we know how to do all of this model first approach, and remaining things are easy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy paste a piece of code in the controller here, and then I'm going to also add a model here. Okay, I'm going to explain you quickly. So whenever you use this entity framework, right, generally, not just entity framework, generally speaking, you should never expose the entities directly to the customers. So in order to do that, what we have to do is, say for example, we have 3 controllers: course controller, instructor controller, student controller. Let's take a look at this. So for the course controller, okay, we are injecting the DB context. Let's say we have an endpoint called get course. We should not expose this course directly, context.course. Instead, we should have the DTOs, data transfer object. Okay, so what it is doing is basically, it is having its own property. It could have a different name as well, but not every single column is exposed. Okay, so we should always have the DTOs like this, and then we should make use of that. So here again, this project is monolithic project. Do not use this in the real world. This is only for demonstration purpose. So in this course controller, we injected the school context. We can access the EF core like this. So db context dot course. So if I say dot, there are 3 tables, right? Course table will come, student table will come, and instructor tables will come. So we are saying dot course, you select everything, but we are mapping it. So dot select is the inbuilt method. We are saying select and you map into this new course DTO, where you assign course ID to course ID, name to name, and make .toList async. .toList async is a asynchronous EF core operation. Okay, so every single method will have asynchronous and synchronous. If you don't use async, it's called synchronous method. Okay, it's better to use always asynchronous, and once you have this awaited for the result, you're sending the result. Okay, so here focus is on model first approach, and I will cover all of this query stuff in the last 3rd video. But just for your walkthrough, we have similarly the course DTO is the one which is getting accepted as the input. We convert this into course, we add this to course, we call save changes, which will generate a new insert statement, and it will insert into our database table. Okay, that is what it is doing. One thing, just remember, entity framework is not thread safe, so you cannot use multiple things in parallel. That's why we always use await here. Okay, and one operation at a time. There's a different way of doing asynchronous, but it's one operation at a time. Okay. Similarly, we have instructor controller and the student controller. This is only for demo purpose. And if I run this, what will happen? The application is going to start, and we will have a fully functional demo application with 3 different controllers. See, it's starting. Let's see what port it is running. I'm going to click this, and where is that? It opens like this, but then you can say Swagger, and it loads all of our controller, right? Great. So if I execute this, right now there is no course, so you will not see any data coming up here, which is fine. But if you add a course like this, for example, .NET Core EF, execute, it's gonna add, I got the result. You can see it's a 201, right? Similarly, you can actually play around with other controllers also. Focus here is to understand how model first works, how migration works, how all of those .NET EF tool commands are getting used. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, share this with your friends, and if you have anything specific, let me know in the comment section. I wanted to tell one more thing. I created this mainly for one of our subscribers, so if you have anything in your mind, don't forget to drop it in the comment section, and soon your video will come alive. Alright guys, stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next database first approach video. Hello friends, welcome back. Want to understand how real app uses the EF Core relationship? In this video, we will connect to a real database and explore one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many relationship using simple code that you can apply immediately. Let's scaffold it and dive in. If you're new to my channel, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to follow me in github.com/learnsmartcoding, and also join the Telegram group so you'll be part of the channel and we can share our knowledge together. Alright, now let's get started. So this video is a second part of the entity framework core, and in the previous video we saw how the model first approach works, and in this one let's take one step ahead and see how a realistic real-time database can be used for the entity framework. So I have taken an existing application, so I'm going to go over quickly about this database. This is basically an e-commerce based application. So if you look at this, this has user profile table, roles, user roles, category, product, address, orders, order item, like all of these things. So basically what this one will have is, this is the e-commerce application. So how, if you go to today Amazon, how you experience those kind of similar setup this database is having. So we have one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many relationship. In this one we will be covering one-to-one. Like one-to-one relationship is basically one user which is having its own setting, and that you will see in the user settings. And one-to-many, basically one category, many products. Many to many, one user with multiple roles, and there are so many other in-depth relationships. So we are going to use this as the base for our third video. In the third video we will deep dive into the entity framework queries and how you can navigate through the child tables. That's called graph. Alright, so we'll talk more about those things in the third one, and let's focus on the database first approach in this video. So this is the database that we have, and we're going to use this and create model in the application. So that is what we are going to do. So I'm going to minimize this. Don't worry about the script. Everything is provided as part of the source code in the github.com. So let's focus on the application. So I'm going to quickly go and create a new project. I'm going to choose the ASP.NET Core. I'm not going to waste time. I'm going to put this name, which is here. Next, everything to be default. We're using .NET Core 9. Create. It's going to create the project. That's it. The project is done. And if you've already watched the previous video, we're going to use the entity framework related packages. All right, so the only thing that I'm using here is we're using the entity framework core package and entity framework core.sql. Save, Control Shift B will build the project. Let's open this, enlarge this. Let's set this as the starting point. This is the startup project now. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly set up the connection string. So if you go here, you can set up here or environment based. Both are going to be same for this simple demo. So here's the database. I'm going to save this, and then this one is basically referring to the localhost, my local connection string. And here we are going to use a table named, so we will use this as the name. The smart card is the database name. So for good, let's open this Solution Explorer, minimize this. Let's set up few more things which is really not required in terms of the database approach, but it's just a basic information that I'm setting up. I'm quickly going to show you what I did. Let's put some code and let's go over the code. All right, so what I did here, nothing, very simple. So all right, we don't need all of these things. Let's come back. Okay, so all right, so we created the basic template, and right away we'll dive into the database approach. So let's say we wanted to use entity framework core for the existing database. So here we will just create a folder called data. Okay, and under data we are going to create a folder called entities, and under entities we are going to put all the models. Okay, so that is our idea, but ideally speaking, this is a monolithic project just for example. Okay, demo purpose. Generally speaking, you will use a proper architecture like clean architecture, CQRS pattern, or entire layer, or whatever it is depending on your project. But please do show those data layers in that side, but this is only for understanding purpose. I'm going to do everything here. All right, so I'm going to place a file called a readme under this. Okay, so in this readme, what is here? If you're new to this video, if you haven't done anything related to EF Core, basically these commands will tell you how to install the entity framework. Okay, so this is the command line tool, entity framework CLI tool. You need to install this entity.NET EF in your computer. So follow these steps to first check, and then if the version is an old one, you can use this to update like this till here. As of this recording, 9.0.4 is the latest one, but if you do this, it will install the latest one, it will update the latest one. If you want to install from fresh, use this. So for example, if I just copy this and just go to command line, type this, it is going to show me what is the version that I have. All right, so that is what you're going to do. So now one more thing is here, if you look at this .NET EF DB context scaffold followed by D, a big thing, right? I will explain you what it is, but those who are new, let's take a look at what this is doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this location by right click, folder location. Once I go here, if you say cmd, basically that will open up this command under this. You can also do like this, or you can say cd followed by the location. Both are same. This is an easy shortcut. All right, so if you have not known this, let me know in the comment section or give me a like. All right, so from here we are going to execute one of the database related command. So first thing, .NET EF, this will give us the commands that's coming for these things. So it has three main commands: database, DB context, migration. All right, so .NET EF space, we have seen migration and its related commands in the previous video. We also saw migrations and database. I mean the migrations and the database and their related commands. In the previous video, we also saw few of the things in DB context. For example, if I type DB context, so it shows info, list, optimize, all of these things, right? Except scaffold, we did everything in the last LLS. Except scaffold, we did everything in the last video. Okay, so today we're going to see this one. So what it says, it scaffolds a DB context and entity types for a database. I'm going to clear this CLS, and what I'm going to do is minimize this, go back to this location, okay, copy this and open this and paste it, okay, and then let me show you what this is. See, we are using here, right? So .NET EF is the tool that we're using under that. Use this command DB context. Under DB context, we are saying scaffold is a command that we have to use. For scaffold, these are the parameters. Basically what we are passing is the connection string of the database. So from here till here is the connection string. So what will be different for you? If your name of the database is different, change it here. If your server name is different, change it here. Sometimes your name will be your computer name, so the name of the server is going to be different. So it's up to you to put it correctly. Okay, so after this we are using Microsoft Entity Framework Code.SQL, and then we are saying create the objects under data/entity folders, and we are also specifying where is the project. Our project is one step ahead. So for example, we open the container from here, we are saying go back one step and then use this location as the project. That is what we are saying. Now if I enter, what will happen? It will actually go and connect to the database, build the project. It will try to scaffold this database as the model. So I'm going to minimize this and open up this, and you will see something happening here. See, it just happened. Why? It just finished. So if I expand this, all of these tables that we were referring to, which is nothing but coming from one single database, is here. Every single class represents a table. That's why it says table. Okay, and then based on the constraints that we gave, like for example, this is the primary key, it just says it's a key. Max length, all of those things. See, foreign key. Okay, like this, if you go over everything, it has all of these things scaffolded for us. So much realistic database. Okay, it also has a DB context for us. So any class that inherits the DB context will become a DB context. So here we are passing the connection string as an option. Okay, now let's take this, go to this program.cs. I have this default code which I will give you, but this is what you need to do. Come here, undo checkout, and I'm going to copy paste the actual name, and that's it. So we are doing a DI service here, like DI configuration, dependency injection configuration of the DB context. We're saying take the connection from the DB context, which is here or here. Okay, and then let's go back. We're saying we enabled the retry, we enabled the detailed error logging and sensitive logging. Okay, so sensitive logging should be disabled in production. Only for the local testing this needs to be enabled, so remember that. It could be turned out to be an interview question as well. Alright, so once you're done with this, we already know how this works. What you need to know, whenever you do the scaffold, just remember, if you scroll down slowly, see, it actually hard codes this. One of the user was facing this issue. They just followed what I did, and I probably forgot to tell that they should delete this. If they don't delete, irrespective of what you pass, this is going to take it from here. Okay, so if you have done this mistake, give me a thumbs up. And it's common. I have done this enough time, so you're not alone. Okay, I'm with you. And then every single property that is configured in the database table is all listed here. That's how the EF core talks to the database, reads the schema, and just writes everything for us. Alright, so this is called database first approach. So what is database first? You start with an existing database and reverse engineer the CSharp models and DB context using the scaffolding tool. Alright, so it has its own pros and cons. Pros: best when you already have a mature DB or a DBA team. Easy to onboard the EF core in a legacy app. It's just easy as easy does. So what are the cons? Customization needs to be done carefully. You have to use probably some partial classes, because sometimes the table will have too many number of columns, and you actually have less control in the code first approach, which is fine. All right, sometimes cons is always I see as positive. All right, so we are going to use the e-commerce application as our demo, and this is what it is going to be. We know how the database first approach works. You know how to scaffold. Let's say we scaffold it, and as things went on, like new tables came and all of those things happen, some existing table changed, same thing. Come here, run the same command, all of these things will be regenerated. Okay, it's not going to hamper anything wrong. If anything is changed in the schema, then you're going to bring it here. That's called reverse engineering. Okay, and trust me, based on my experience, model first is something that I've not even done once in a real project, because it's very hard that you start with a new database and like a very fresh project. Most of the applications will be like rewritten, database will be already there. So I have seen 99.9% as the database first approach, not the model first approach. Of course, you might have seen different. So let me know, what did you see in your experience, database first or model first? Whether you saw database first more or model first more, or you just see one of those. So let me know in the comment section. Sharing is caring. So if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and share this with friends. Join the Telegram group. You can chat. Join the Telegram group. We can help each other. And stay tuned. Next video will be much interesting. We'll be using this in the next one to write nice queries using EF Core's LINQ and Lambda expressions. So stay tuned, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Hello friends, welcome back. Are you building a .NET app and wondering how to write clean and powerful queries using EF Core? In this video, I will walk you through a real-world example using a simple e-commerce schema. We will cover the CRUD operation, LINQ versus Lambda query, and even how to project the data into DTOs the right way. By the end, you'll feel confident writing EF Core queries like a pro. So come, let's get started. Alright, so if you have not followed me in GitHub, go to github.com/learnsmartcoding and hit on follow and follow me, so you will know every single update that I do on any of these repositories. You will get to know. And if you haven't joined the Telegram group channel, you can join and we can discuss there, and we can also help each other. So this video is part of the EF Core detail series, and this is the third video. So just to recap, in the first video we talked about EF Core, what is EF Core and how we can install the EF Core tools, how model first approach works with the specific schema, like a simple application. And then we jumped on to the second video where we discussed about the database first approach. We took the e-commerce application as our legacy or existing application. That database, we saw how to scaffold it. That's what the database first approach works. And in this video, we're going to take the same one, just go through what we have done, and then I'm going to explain you all different sorts of queries, how you can write, how graph works, and all of those things, right? So there are much more easy stuff you can do it in EF Core. So come, let's dive into the schema now. this is what the code that you'll see when the video is released. Okay, so this one is the model first approach. This has its own schema. This is a different application. Now we're dealing with the database first approach. So in database first approach, you can come to this data DB schema. You will get the whole schema here. Don't search the script, it is all here. And it also has the sample data. It has enough sample data here. You can look at this. If I just copy this and if I try to run this, because I already created this database, you see this, we have a lot of data to work with. All right, so this is the script, this is the readme. If you haven't installed the EF Core related tools, you will see everything in the readme. Script is here and the scaffolded content is here. Okay, now based on this, we are going to build 3 controllers. I already built, so I'm going to go through with you how this is working. So 3 controllers. Let's go to the first one, user controller. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this. Let's go over the first one. Okay, so what do we have? Let's say we wanted to get all the users. Okay, so all the users, if I expand what I have done, we can use the entity framework context, like you inject the context. Okay, after you inject the context, the moment you say dot, all of these tables will list down. Okay, all of these tables. So for example, anything that you see like this, like a spanner, they're all tables. Okay, so similarly we have dot user profile tables. You see this user profile is coming. So what you can do is you can use this table, and if you go inside this table, according to the schema, what do we have? A profile table will have relationship, like for example, you're a user, right? You will have 1 or more address associated with it. You might have ordered some items, or you might have added an item in the cart, so you have multiple items in the cart. You might have orders, that's why orders is there. You might have reviewed some products, it's possible. You might there, you will have some activities, you will have some roles, you have only 1 settings associated with you, you might have some wish list. See, so many things. Now how do I deal with this? If I go here, whenever you say include, so include, for example, right, so if I say include, it is going to include the table that is associated with this profile table. So I'm saying whenever you pull up the user information, pull up its associated user setting tables, pull up the associated role tables. After role, pull up the role ID, like the role details. That's what called then include. And then we are making it as asynchronous. Okay, every single API, I mean to say every single method that you call will have synchronous also. This is called synchronous. Whenever you use synchronous, it's just gonna wait till it finishes. So it's always good to use asynchronous. So asynchronous and synchronous, you just need to use how to use the async await keyword. There are good videos in my channel describing how asynchronous async works. But remember one thing, any method that ends with async, not just this demo, right? You can check this in any of the framework in .NET, right? You will see this async. That's a standard. So that's the one that identifies that this method is asynchronous method. You're supposed to use await keyword. Okay, so that's the logic. So we can use like this, get the users. We're going to put the breakpoint here, and then once you have it, can I send this data? If you send this data directly as a OK result, what will happen? What will happen is you are exposing your entities directly. You're not supposed to expose the entities directly. That's when DTO comes into picture. What is DTO? Data transfer object. So if I go to this data transfer object, I created some specific properties. See, user profile will have what? If you look at this, let's go and understand. Okay, it has all of these things, right? Can I send these many? Not this one, sorry. User profile. Let's go inside this. Can I send all of this information? We don't need to send all of this information, right? Imagine if a user has thousands of products ordered, reviews, like thousands of reviews, like so many information. We don't need it. We cannot send, and we should not send. We should never send. That's when this data transfer object came into picture. Okay, the reason why I picked up this e-commerce is this will expose you to a realistic example. Very simple to-do list is not going to help you. This is the realistic example. If you agree to me, just give me a thumbs up. And if you have anything to say, do post it in the comment section. I'll be happy to reply. And let's switch back to the DTO. So we have our user defined DTOs, right? We say user DTO. We define whatever we wanted to send it back. We just wanted to send these 5 properties, and we wanted to send this property and this property. What is this property? Again, another DTO that will have only these 2 information. Roles, just a list of string. Okay, so whenever you wanted to send such a custom DTO, you can use the select statement and convert the content. Here U stands for this. You can convert this into your required object, and finally you can send it. So here what we're doing, we are assigning the user ID of this user table here, name, everything here. And if you look at the settings, what is coming? U.user setting, because we pulled user settings also here, right? We pulled user setting here. That's why here U.user setting is coming. Actually, if I comment this should show error, or this will be null. Actually, why this is null? You never pulled here, because you didn't pull here. When the query runs, it will be null here. Okay, and then that's how you assign it. Okay, so you can use this. So that's how the query is formed. Similarly, if you wanted to pass just one, you can do the same thing, and you can apply a var class. And you can use a different method called first or default async. What is first or default async? If you say first or default, it will give you, if you say first, if there is no item, it will give you a null exception. But first or default will assign a null here. It's a safe null basically. Alright, so this is good. And then similarly for post, we accept a DTO. Now it's like A and B. A is DTO, B is actual object. You pass A, we convert into B. In here, we have B, we want to pass A. So we convert into A. This is B value converting into A. This is ulta. This is the other way around. We get A value, we convert into B. Right? B to A to B. I hope I'm not confusing. So once it is added, like whenever you wanted to add to a item, you use the dp context dot profile dot add and then pass this object. Then this information is saved. But here is the beautiful thing. I'm going to put a breakpoint here. Okay. If you look at this, this is one table. This is another table. User setting, right? So what will happen is, when you pass this information, I think we should debug and see. It's easy to show what I meant. Okay, so application is loaded. Let's go and do one by one. Okay, so I'm gonna open this first one. Okay, so if I say try it out, okay, so user ID we don't need to give. Display name, let's say testing. First name Karthik. Okay, email ID, just for now it's okay, it's only for testing purpose. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Okay, we are passing all of this information. We are passing these information, right? So role, receivers to, we can say dark. Okay, I'm gonna execute this. It's gonna hit the breakpoint, and let's see what happens. See, we received this information. If you look at this, this is what we received, right? We converted into this user profile. But if you hover here, user profile has these many relationships. In that relationship, we have user settings also added. So which means whenever we create a new profile, like a new entry for this table, we are also associating a new entry for this table also. How? You are passing an object here. Okay, so what will happen is, though you are adding this user profile to this one, its child tables also gets added automatically. And one more interesting thing, if you are not aware of it, if I open this, you will see user ID is 0, right? I'm gonna execute this, save it. Alright, so I executed it. Now what happens? If I hover here, the user ID which was 0 got updated to 9 automatically. That's the beauty of EF Core. EF Core will actually update the identity column by itself, and not only that, in this object itself, it has referenced actually. So it is tracking the changes. Okay, so we have this one, and if I just go to this user settings, see, this new table is also updated. So if I expand this, see, this is the new table, right? So remember, this is a 9. Okay, so now if I just run this, it works. But let's go back to this and see what happened. User profile and user settings, right? I'm going to copy this, or I'm just going to copy this, run this. 9 is a table that got created automatically, its reference, and here is the 9 table. See, that's how it works. Okay, it's not just one item. With the graph, you can add so many things. Now if I execute this, this is going to be like a and B. If you remember, it is going to take all of this information and convert into what we want, and it is sending it back. All right, so that's how it works. Now similarly, if you go to this product controller, right, we can go to the product, we can include its category, we can include its images and convert it. Similarly for order, it's the same thing. Let's go one by one. See, we can do so many things. For get order for a particular user, we can go inside the order is associated with the user. So we are saying, hey, for each order, pull up the user information. Also pull up the order items. Once you pull up the order items, which has the product information, so use dot then include the product. So this is a parent table for this one. I mean to say, order item will have the product ID, so we can pull up its product information. Similarly, we can pull up order coupon if there's some coupon information. All of these things we can be pulled up, and we can always and should always convert our object into DTOs, okay, whenever we return the information. Similarly, there is so many different endpoints has been created here. So for add, it will be add. For update, it should be update. Okay, now one thing that we need to know is tracking and no tracking. Okay, for example, let's talk about tracking and no tracking. Okay, so here if you look at this, after you do everything, dot as no tracking. If you say has no tracking, you know what does it mean? The query will be powerful. The reason, because we are saying entity framework that, hey, pull up whatever I asked, but don't worry about that, don't track it. Okay, which means like I just need it only for reading purpose. I'm not going to modify the entity, so don't track it. So use as no tracking only when you are not going to use the entity for modifying purpose. Do not use that for every single thing. Reason, I will tell you an example. For example, you wanted to update an item. Okay, where is the good example? Let's go here. Do we have any update? Okay, so let's say I wanted to update an information. If I pull up this information, okay, as no tracking, for example, let's take an example here itself. That should be a good one. okay, a particular order. Okay, so let's say I use this as no tracking. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm saying order item dot. So let's say I wanted to clear all the order items. Okay, I cleared it in the in memory. Now if I say context, now let's say I say context dot order items dot update, and then I pass this order. Okay, so let's say orders. Okay, and then I also say context dot save async. So ideally what will happen is we remove some collection, we try to update this order. At this point of time, EF Core will actually generate the update statement. In fact, it will generate the delete statement because we're clearing the items. Let's say the 5 items, we wanted to clear off the 5 items, it generates a delete statement. But because we did this piece of line, right, as no tracking, because we just did this as no tracking, this entity is no more tracked. It won't delete anything, it won't generate anything because it's not tracking. If you do this, nothing will happen. That's why you should know when to use as no tracking, when not to use as no tracking. Alright, that's one of the important things in EF Core. And one more thing, EF Core is not thread safe, so do not use EF Core in parallel. You will end up getting thread safety errors. In fact, the application will stop, it won't even work, depending on how badly the parallelism is used. So it is super fast. You just need to use any method that you use in entity framework, use an await keyword, use always asynchronous thing. Alright, so that way it is going to be very helpful for you, and you can write super nice EF queries, whether it is a LINQ or Lambda expression, doesn't matter. So we have plenty of examples here. We have examples in model first also. If you go to this controller, you'll get different queries here. There are many things that is still there in EF Core which I cannot cover in one single video, but in the future videos I will cover some specific scenarios of EF Core, how interviewers will ask those kind of things, like just to test your knowledge. They're not going to do anything else, right? As long as they know that you have knowledge on EF Core, they will say good to go. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have anything specific to ask, let me know in the comment section, and leave a thumbs up, share this with your friends, and stay tuned. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!